What's going on, everybody? This is Julian Baudouin. I'm here with Tunisia Islam. Welcome back to another episode of News for You. What episode is this, Tunisia?
Episode 12.
Episode 12. We've been doing this for a while now. We appreciate your continued dedication to watching and supporting this broadcast. The goal of this broadcast is to bring you accurate and timely information on immigration and also knowing your rights surrounding immigration. This is brought to you by the South Dakota Dream Coalition, where there's a group of immigrant-led and immigrant-facing organizations that work around our state. And so with that, we want to give you just some ways to where you can continue to follow us and watch. Tonight, we are being broadcasted live from the South Dakota Voices for Peace Facebook page, as well as the YouTube page, the Hub South Dakota Facebook page and YouTube page, South Dakota Dream Coalition. And last week was our first time been able to broadcast live from the News for You Facebook page. We are live on that again. So I know there's a lot of platforms, but go to each one of those, follow those, and also make sure you are sharing the information that we are giving you as well. Excuse me. So we do rely on you to also ask questions so that we can continue to build some content around this broadcast. So if you have questions, make sure you are submitting those questions to South Dakota Voices for Peace. Did I cover it all?
I think you got it.
I think we got it all. So we'll get started here with kind of just some recent information that we have. So today we're going to review some information around alien registration. It went into effect on April 11th of this year. And also kind of talking around what self-deportation means. We're going to highlight the TPS program that has been terminated. And then also the importance of signing the power of attorney, which is something that we continue to talk through. So, Tunisia, let's start with the alien registration part. What is it, and what does it mean to register?
Yeah, this has been a concern for a lot of people. It's one of the first things President Trump kind of was talking about. And he had the executive order, and then a federal judge actually put a stop to it. And then just last week on April 10th, the judge basically said that the Trump administration can go forward with a nationwide registry. And this is for anyone over 14 years old who has been in the United States for 30 or more days. And if you have a child under 14, you as the parent are responsible for registering your child. So this past Tuesday, what is it, Thursday?
Weeks flying by.
I know, 10 years ago. A couple of days ago, Olympia, who works at Voices for Peace, is one of our bilingual paralegals. She and I did a live Facebook presentation just because it was more urgent. Like we wanted to get the info out as soon as we got it. And so if you want more in-depth information about the alien registry, we really encourage you to watch our Facebook Live that we did on Tuesday, and you can find that on the South Dakota Voices for Peace Facebook page. And so there's one link that will be in English and then a separate one that will be in Spanish, which is the model that we use here too. So when it comes to the registry, it sounds really scary, and it actually really is. There's a lot of things to consider. Again, this is not legal advice. What we're really wanting to do with News for You is to provide you accurate information so you can make informed decisions for yourself, for your family, for all who are involved in your life to make these decisions. So there are two main things that I wanted to cover when it comes to the registry. There are people who are actually already registered, and so we'll run through who those folks are. And then we'll talk about if you're not registered, what should you do? So I have some slides that we gave over to Daniel, who's our magic master in the back. So I'll ask him to pull up the slides here. We'll see if that happens.
We're good.
All right, so who is already registered? Okay, so these are all the list of people. There's more than this list, but we really are highlighting the people we think will be impacted the most. And so green card holders, if you have a green card, you're already registered. You don't have to worry about going through the registration process. People who have been granted parole or advanced parole, and if you came in these programs, hopefully you know what that means. So even if your parole it has expired, you are considered registered for the Alien Registry. People who came into the US on a non-immigrant or immigrant visa, so like a tourist visa or a work visa, even if that's expired and you're still here, you're considered registered. This is a really important one. These are for people in immigration court. So these are people in what we call removal proceedings, oftentimes called deportation proceedings. But if you came to our southern border and you were put in a detention center and then released on bond, you will probably have this notice to appear NTA form. If you have that form, then you are registered and you do not have to do a separate additional registry. People granted employment authorization on any basis. So if you have an EAD card, even if it's expired, and this includes folks who have TPS, DACA, or asylum, and these three are important because we'll go into who's not registered. But if you have an EAD based on any status, even if it's expired, you are considered registered. If you're a refugee who's here, you're considered registered. People who have even applied for a green card or lawful permanent status, even if that application was denied, is considered registered. And if you came through our southern border with a border crossing card or from the north, or entered in the US as a crewman, and again, you will know what that means if that fits your description, then you are considered registered. So again, for some of you, you're really good at keeping track of all your documents. Some of you may need to get documents from USCIS, and we can go through that process next time. But this is just a sample of what your form 1I-862 or the notice to appear in immigration court looks like. So if you have a form that looks like this, if it says notice to appear on the top right corner, then you do not have to register under this new registration.
So before you move forward, maybe just a question on the expiration dates of things. Do you recommend that folks go in, or is there a way if something is expired for them to go and update that process?
That's a tricky question.
Okay.
Like most answers to immigration questions. If you're eligible to renew, then of course we encourage you to do that as soon as possible. Some of these programs have actually ended, and so they are not eligible to renew. But the good news is if you have an expired EAD, employment authorization, then you'll still be considered registered, which is a whole different new thing that was just unveiled last Friday.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
So let's see. So if you are not registered, let's see, Danielle, if we're on the right side here, who is not registered, we will talk about this. One thing I wanted to note is that if you don't register, there are criminal penalties that are associated with not registering. So you could be jailed or fined or both for $5,000. So if you do have the list of documents that we had up that is proof that you're already registered, please keep a copy of that with you at all times. You have to be able to prove that you're registered in this new registry if asked by immigration, for example. And so you want to have that on you so you aren't in jeopardy of facing criminal prosecution or a pretty hefty fine. So next slide, who is not registered? So really this is the real intent of this alien registry, is to get people who have entered without inspection and admission. And oftentimes these are people who we call have unlawfully entered or illegally entered. If you're a non-citizen who has entered without inspection, then you have to register. And we'll go into what that means in a second. So Canadian visitors who have entered without documentation, you are not considered registered. So this is a little bit tricky, and I don't want to scare folks who have DACA, TPS, or asylum, but if you only have DACA but don't have a work permit, based on DACA, you are not considered registered. So for DACA, TPS, and asylum, you must have a work authorization card, even if it's expired, based on that status to prove you have registered for this specific program. So another thing, at our office, we work with victims of crimes, adult victims, and a lot of these folks actually are not considered registered because they have only applied for a humanitarian application, and those are not listed on their approved documents for registration. All right. So how do we register? Next slide. This is really, again, tricky and not what I would call a very fair process, because the overwhelming majority of the people who have to register probably do not speak English as their first language. The only way to do this is online. So you have to have internet access and a computer or something. I'm going to say that using your phone is probably going to be difficult because you have to read the questions and type out the answers, basically. So you go to uscis.gov and you have to create a USCIS online account. You have to find the form G325R, and then you have to fill out this form and submit it online only. There's no paper version of this form even. Like, we really don't know what it looks like. So unless you've already registered. So once you submit that application, we don't know what the turnaround time is, but you're supposed to get a biometrics appointment scheduled. So that means you have to go to the application support center. And we have one of those here in Sioux Falls where you get your fingerprints done. And then you go back to your account and you'll have proof of registration. And again, you have to carry that proof of registration around with you if you're 18 years or older.
So one comment and then also maybe just a follow-up question as well. This is English only. So it's not able to be translated unless you have a translator with you, correct?
Yeah, you really want to have someone that is fully proficient in English and your language, because it is a crime to provide false information to USCIS or any government agency. So please do not provide false information. So you really need to have someone you can trust that is translating the questions to you accurately.
And then the follow-up question that I would have is, as far as fingerprints, where do they go to get that done?
Yeah, it'll tell them. So
Okay.
once they get that notice, it'll say the address.
Okay.
Typically, if you're in South Dakota, on the eastern half of the state especially, you're going to get a notice to go to the Sioux Falls office.
Okay.
Sometimes it's Omaha, sometimes I don't know where it is, but it will have the address on there.
Okay.
Anything else?
Well,
That was a good
that's all
question.
I had.
All right, so I'm trying to go through a lot of things here. So the next slide is a rundown of the criminal penalties. Again, so if you do not register or provide your biometrics, attend your biometrics appointment, you can be punished up to $5,000 fine and or imprisonment up to 6 months. Failure to carry proof of your registration. So if you register and you have that proof and they ask for it and you can't show it, can be punished by a fine of $5,000 or imprisonment up to 30 days. Providing false information regardless of what the application is, but specifically they're making it clear that providing false information on this application will result in pretty final deportation. And then this is also kind of tricky, but things that people really need to be aware of. If you move, you have to update your address through your online account within 10 days. Or again, you can be punished with a fine or jail time, which all of this could eventually result in deportation because it's a crime you're committing.
So, okay, sorry, no follow-up question.
Okay.
So because these are federal laws, if any of these federal laws are broken, where may someone be sent? Would it be federal prison or would it be somewhere else?
Good question.
Okay.
As far as we know, if you are charged with a federal crime, like this is not an immigration statute,
Okay.
that you should be in federal court. If it's an immigration violation, then that would be an immigration court.
Okay.
So it can get tricky, but hopefully if you do get in prison, you would have a right to an attorney, especially because it's criminal, you would have a right to a public defender, and hopefully they would know what to do,
Okay.
hopefully. So we understand that this is very scary. It's scary for us as attorneys, as service providers, and as advocates in the community, because on one hand, you have to register or it can be a crime, but on the other hand, you're now telling the government exactly where you are. And typically people who are undocumented are really living in the shadows of our community. We don't even know who they are, and now we'll know. And this could be really a target to tell ICE where you are and eventually deport you. And that is the intent of this. The government has been clear that the intent of this is to deport you. So, hard decisions,
Sure.
really hard decisions. But I also want to tell you this, that you do have a constitutional right to remain silent. That applies to applications as well, like this. So if you believe you are providing information where you're admitting to a crime, that's called self-incrimination, you can assert the right to remain silent. What this means is in the form, you can just put, I'm using my right to remain silent, if it allows you to type that out. If it's a checkbox, we don't know the advice on that yet. I mean, so this just happened on Friday, so we're still gathering practice advisories from different organizations that we've used today, like the National Immigration Law Center, to provide you updated information. But the practicality of asserting our rights, as we've talked about in several episodes, is also very challenging. Because at the end of the day, what you would have to do is go to court and defend yourself by saying that you did assert your right.
Yeah.
Right? So again, no easy decisions at all. And this wasn't made to be easy.
Yeah, it certainly seems as if it was very intentional. And you're right, these are some really stressful decisions. You talked about self-incrimination a little bit. Let's maybe dive into self-deportation. So what is self-deportation, and then how do we actually do that?
Yeah, so there have been all these programs that are being terminated and then they're being halted by court. People are getting different messages from the government, and the government is hoping that everyone is going to self-deport, like take themselves back to a country.
Sure.
Right? So self-deportation, it's not clear what the process is because the government has signaled if you would like to leave and go back to your country, you can use the CBP Home app, which is the new version of CBP One, which was terminated, to let the government know. So we're trying to really understand what the costs and benefits are to notifying the government you're leaving. So the one thing I can tell you for sure right now is that if you are in immigration court proceedings, that means you're in deportation proceedings. There's really no other reason you would be in immigration court proceedings. You will probably want to ask the court for something called voluntary departure. And if you have an attorney already, please talk to them about the costs and benefits of asking for voluntary departure. This is basically a way to tell the court, because you have an open court proceeding, right? It's basically a way to tell the court, hey, I would like voluntary departure, which can in the future be a good reason for you to be able to come back lawfully. Because there's all this math that goes into how much unlawful presence you've accrued, if you're following what the government is telling you to do. So voluntary departure could be a way you can come back to the country in the future if you ever want to lawfully.
Okay.
Right? So that's the tricky part. But if you are not in court proceedings right now, there really is no clear process on what it means to self-deport. And again, as soon as we get more information, we'll share it here on News for You. Also, when you are ordered removed or deported by the US government, the US government pays for your flight to take you back to country. And we have evidence right now that people are being taken back to a country they're not from. So that's why I say a country. And a lot of these programs that are being terminated are actually countries that are in war and famine, have really dire conditions. So it's also against international law to send people back to a country where they will face harm. So there's a lot of analysis that needs to go into that, and we'll leave that up to the expert lawyers in the field. So oftentimes I get asked this question, which I wanted to bring up here, is that if I am deported and I have a US citizen child who was born here, will my child be deported with me? So the answer is no. The government is not going to pay for a US citizen flight back to wherever they're sending me, right, mom or dad. And family unity is not a priority for this administration, which they've made clear. Again, if these things change, we will let you know.
So, just sitting here listening, I'm thinking of a scenario where maybe someone is here on a visa and the visa has been revoked, and then they self-deport themselves back to a country. Do they then have to restart the process of becoming a citizen?
Yeah, that's a great question, which I didn't add to this episode. Is there's a lot of activity that we're seeing in terms of international visas for students being revoked. And my understanding is that if something is revoked, that means you can reapply, but you have to start from the beginning. And that means you can't apply for an international student visa really here. You have to do it from another country. And everyone who's gone through that process knows what that looks like. So that's my understanding of if a student visa is revoked specifically. So you should have an opportunity, but if you want to take it, to come back through a student visa. But typically, if you think about it, the reason why they revoked the visa will come up again during your reapplication.
Sure.
But another layer to this is students are not being given a reason for why their visas are being revoked. So we don't really know what the basis of the revocations have been so far.
Okay. So you did talk a little bit about, if you are deported as an immigrant, but your child is maybe a U.S. citizen. You talked a little bit about that, but what can we do to protect the child in that instance?
Yeah. So this is something we've really been emphasizing pretty much in every episode, is that there is a document you can get a notary stamp on, and it's called a power of attorney for childcare. So this document allows you to choose someone to take care of your children in the case of detention or deportation, and that's how we made the document. Okay, so this document is on our website, and it's free. All of this is free. There should be zero cost associated with trying to find a power of attorney and fill it out. So we do have a slide of our website for you to look at. So if you go to our website, you can download and print. We have it in English and Spanish. We have frequently asked questions in both languages, so you can learn more about what a power of attorney is. So go to our website and click resources and then click family preparedness and you'll see all of that information. So the only thing you need for this to become a legal document is to get it stamped by a notary. And a notary are people at banks, and there are several banks in our community that provide notary service for free, even if you are not a customer there. And at South Dakota Voices for Peace and Caminando Juntos, we, who are all part of the Dream Coalition, we also have notaries who are available to stamp your documents for free. Just call our offices and make an appointment so we make sure someone with the notary stamp is available when you come.
Awesome. And then just kind of based on that, I know we have some information as far as phone numbers and addresses are concerned. We have that. That'll pop up on the screen as well for you. So if you need that, again, just send us a message and we'll be able to get that out to you. All right. So I know we don't have a lot of time left in the episode. We've covered a lot so far, but this is something and you and I have talked offline about this for sure, but this is something that's been widespread. And it's going to have a negative impact on a lot of folks. Tell us a little bit about the TPS parole program and those programs, how they've been terminated and maybe the impact that it's going to have on our community.
Yeah, so temporary protected status, TPS, and parole are actually limited time frame that you can be in the country. TPS is a really big topic right now because there's a lot of litigation, a lot of things are ending, we're not sure where they're at. So I promise I'll cover TPS right away at the next episode. But for the parole programs, this is what I want to highlight. Many different people who came on different parole programs, so there's different programs, were probably notified in the last 2 to 4 weeks that their parole program has ended and they need to leave the country, self-deport. And it's really important to understand which parole program you came under and entered in the U.S. with.
Now, we're not talking about the same type of parole that most folks will be thinking about, right? So as far as like a parolee, if you will, from the judicial system.
Nope. So in the immigration context, parole is a program which allows you to temporarily come lawfully into the United States and allows you lawful work permit. Okay. Yeah, totally different world from your world.
Right.
And my world. Okay. So if you've entered inside the U.S. at a land border and you came through the CBP One app, if you qualify for any other application, please file that right away. Find legal assistance. Most commonly, if you can apply for an asylum claim, it has to be valid because, again, if it's false or frivolous, that can have dire consequences. But if it's something you think you could apply to and you're already here on a parole program that's been terminated, we're really encouraging people to apply. So if you applied for asylum or TPS, your work authorization is valid until the expiration date. If you did not get a work permit based on another program, so you can get a work permit based on parole, or you can apply for something else when you're here and get a work permit based on these other things. So if you don't have a work permit that's based on something else and it's only based on your parole, when that parole end date is when your lawful work permit ends too. So that means you can no longer work lawfully in the United States. If you came through the CHNV parole program, which is Cuban, Haitian, Nicaraguan, and Venezuelan, through an airport, you received a notice that your parole will be canceled on April 24th, but a federal judge has halted this mass termination of the CHNV parole program. But Department of Homeland Security, ICE can still detain and deport you on an individual basis, even though you have CHNV parole. So it's not like you're 100% safe from detention or deportation if you came through this program.
Is there a time limit to the detention? Can they detain you for a certain period of time?
That's a good question. I honestly don't know. I don't do removal defense, but I will look into it and let you know for next time. Let's see. So if USCIS is not currently processing applications for Ukrainians who came under the U4U program or the THNP Family Reunification Program, but there are lawsuits about this as too. So once your parole terminates and you haven't applied for a green card, which is called adjustment of status, you will no longer be able to do so. If you entered through a parole program and have received a grant of asylum, TPS, a visa, a green card, something else, really, then your parole termination will not affect your status because technically you use parole to come in lawfully and now you have a different status. And that's the status that will matter. So the Trump administration has ended TPS for Venezuela, Haiti, and Afghanistan, and these are all being litigated in court too. So for now, we can just take a breath on those TPS programs, and we will, of course, update you. I'm just gonna leave it for here for now, just because it's already 6:30, which always surprises me how quickly this goes. It's really exhausting, and I want to name this. It's exhausting at how quickly things are changing, and it's shocking to hear what the Trump administration is doing and the whiplash we all feel when something comes out and then there's litigation and then something else happens is really real. So really, this is a time where you need to have a source of accurate information. And at News for You, we have immigration lawyers, policy experts, community leaders that are coming together to put this information together for you. So please continue to tune in to News for You.
Yeah. On that note, we know we can't take away all of the stresses and anxiety and the fears, but hopefully the accurate, truthful, and timely information that we are providing for you can help mitigate that at least a little bit, because these are really stressful times for sure. Again, News for You is brought to you by the South Dakota Dream Coalition. And so we do have, expert immigration lawyers and community leaders that hopefully can help you feel a little bit less anxious about going outside of your house or into the community. Sometimes even bringing your children to school. Some of the things that we take for granted every single day, we know there's a lot of anxiety around that. So thank you again for tuning in to News for You. We do need your help continuing to spread the word. We want as many eyes on this programming as we possibly can. So remember, today we were live on several social media platforms. On Facebook, we were live on South Dakota Voices for Peace, the Hub South Dakota, News for You, and the South Dakota Dream Coalition. And then on YouTube, we were live on the South Dakota Voices for Peace and the Hub South Dakota. It's a lot. I gotta try to remember that. It is a lot. Also remember to continue to send your questions in to Cape Potts Sioux Falls, as well as South Dakota Voices for Peace, because we do rely on your questions and your engagement to continue ensuring that we're providing the news for you. Our broadcasts are every week in English at 6 p.m. And then we try to get out on time to have a 6:30 broadcast in Spanish as well. We also do rely on your donations. This programming we try to offer at a low cost, but it's not free, unfortunately. And so we do ask that you continue to submit those donations. We do have a GoFundMe page up, and they go directly through South Dakota Voices for Peace. And so before I close out, Tanisa, was there anything else that maybe I missed you want to add?
No, I think that's it.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks again for watching, and we will see y'all next time.